This podcast is sponsored by IQ Bar.
I've got good news and bad news. Here's the bad news. Most protein bars are packed with sugar and unpronounceable ingredients. The good news? There's a better option. I'm Will, and I created IQ Bar plant protein bars to empower doers like you with clean, delicious, low-sugar brain and body fuel. IQ Bars are packed with 12 grams of protein, brain nutrients like magnesium and lion's mane, and zero weird stuff. And right now, you can get 20% off all IQ Bar products, plus free shipping. Try our delicious IQ Bar sampler pack with 7 plant protein bars, 4 hydration mixes, and 4 enhanced coffee sticks. Clean ingredients, amazing taste, and you'll love how you feel. Refuel smarter, hydrate harder, caffeinate larger with IQ Bar.
Go to eatiqbar.com and enter code BAR20 to get 20% off all IQ Bar products, plus free shipping. Again, go to eatiqbar.com and enter code BAR20.
You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/kidsandfamily. Just go to Indeed.com/kidsandfamily right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
Ooh, a spicy question. I
because
love
the writing is sort of everything, right? Like you can fix plot holes, but if the writing is
so some
there,
readers love that, and some readers are like, but I wanted more of this. So it's kind of a gamble.
Hello and welcome back to the Right and Wrong podcast. Today I am joined by one of the Booksellers 2022 Rising Stars, literary agent with Mushins Entertainment. It's Liza DeBlock. Hello.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Good. My voice is a bit rough after a day at the London Book Fair, so please bear with me today.
Yeah. We'll try and take it easy, not do any like shouting or chanting, maybe.
Awesome. Sounds good.
Let's start things off with a bit about you and your, how you started your career in publishing. Was working with books and literature, was that something that you've always wanted to do?
Deep down, yes. But I actually started out in academia, and okay. I came over to St. Andrews to do a postgrad degree, and I went really meta, and I was looking at the history of publishing, the development of the written word, kind of communication, how books developed kind of as an object, as a part of society. And I was doing that. And I think in my heart of hearts, I really wanted to be in publishing, but was a little bit scared to give it a go and give it a shot. So I remember I was doing a PhD at the time, and I had my first year review. And afterwards, I kind of had a moment of realization where I said, you know what, I don't want to be in academia. I actually want to try publishing. So I was getting on a train, my family was visiting, and we were going from Scotland to London. And the entire time I just opened my laptop and I Googled, how do you get into publishing? And then basically just made a list of different places and different ways that I could try to start going for internships, going for jobs, just kind of something to actually try to break into the industry. And that kind of really got me started from there on out.
Oh, okay. And am I right in thinking your first job in publishing was as a scout?
Yeah. So I did a few internships, one of which was in scouting. And I had no clue what a scout was before learning about them on the SYP jobs board. And I found them so fascinating. And I really liked doing the Frankfurt Book Fair scheduling for Mira Trenchard Literary. That's who I did my internship with. And then I was applying for jobs, and I got my first job at Eccles Fisher Associates. and I assisted there for roughly 8 or 9 months. And it was really fun because I loved seeing the whole industry through the lens of scouting, and you get to know who the best editors are, the best agents are, the best books are, and then you help sell those books internationally. And that's something that I've always been very passionate about. So I started out in scouting, and then kind of realized that I actually wanted to work more with the books rather than reporting on them. And I really liked working with authors and helping change the trajectory of a book, from editorial stage to sales, to publishing, to international sales. So I made the jump from there over then to what's now become Mushins Entertainment.
Okay. And that was as Juliet's assistant?
Yeah, so I originally started working when it was Caskey Mushins for Robert Caskey and Juliet Mushins. And so I started out as their assistant at the very end, I think, of 2018. And then the next year, I just watched as Juliet did an incredible job kind of signing. That was the year that she signed Richard Osman, Abigail Dean, a slew of all of her incredible authors. And I had a front row seat to seeing how she worked her magic and worked so hard, and just kind of really started to get going. And then I was lucky enough to start working with those foreign rights and selling those internationally on her behalf and the author's behalf. And everything has just kind of snowballed in a really wonderful way since then.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Was foreign rights, that seems like a natural thing to do off the back of having experience as a scout.
Yeah. And with scouting, like I said, you get such a good idea at what international clients are looking for, whether that's people in China or in Germany or Brazil, like anywhere across the world. So when I was reading for Juliet or Robert at the time, in the back of my mind, I was thinking, oh, like, I know somebody in Germany who would actually really like this. And I was always thinking on a much broader spectrum of how to then obviously take a book that's been sold in the UK or the US and then launch it and give it the biggest, best life possible kind of across the world. And so scouting really gives you that great mindset of the international rights kind of level. And then going to work at a place where I had such incredible books to send all over the world was just incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I see on, when you look at like an agency,
mm-hmm.
obviously there's people whose their main job is foreign rights. Is that something that it's sort of too big to do as well as being a literary agent, or is it something that you can kind of do both of, or do you kind of grab them to assist you when you're doing the foreign rights stuff?
It really depends on the size of the agency, and kind of what's possible as it grows. So there's some very large agencies where foreign rights is a completely separate department to the main agents. And then there are some smaller agencies where the primary agent will sell their own rights internationally. And there's like every varying degree in between. So what I was doing was I kind of started building up the foreign rights and selling Juliet's books. And then as we had more agents come in, I was selling their books, but then Juliet knew that I really wanted to acquire some of my own authors too. So I started kind of organically building them up alongside all of the rights that I was selling. And it's something that I think could have only happened the way that it did while at Mushins Entertainment, because there was flexibility, and Juliet was really curious at seeing how things went and she still has just absolute faith in kind of my ability to find books, sell them, whether they're her books or my own or anybody else's. So it really just depends on how big the agency is, what kind of a situation you have. But I know people who just work foreign rights, and I know people who are just agents. And it is really busy trying to do both. So I came back from my maternity leave, and I was at a point with my list where the decision was then made that it might be good to start just focusing on my clients and building that list and kind of start stepping away from foreign rights. So we now have two great people in our foreign rights team, Alba and Katrina, and they sell everything, but it's like coming from that background for me, it means that when I'm reading a submission, I'm thinking, okay, can I sell this in the UK? But where else in the world do I want to go and sell this?
Right. Because the markets are so different, right? And it's about kind of just understanding what that market wants.
Yeah, I was at the London Book Fair yesterday, and I was pitching a romantasy to somebody, I think from a Scandinavian territory. And I was like, okay, so there are vampires and witches in it. And she just goes, nope, my country doesn't like witches. It's just a thing. But we really love werewolves. Do you have anything with werewolves? And it's so fascinating because each country has their own reading kind of list of things that they really look for. So, like Italy might hate thrillers, but they absolutely love historical fiction, or China might love a really good nonfiction memoir, but hate romantasy. It's very fascinating figuring out what fits with different readerships across the world. And then when you find a book that kind of transcends all of the readerships, those are just like the magical books overall.
Okay. Right. That's so interesting. Cause I'd always thought it's so interesting that they can be so specific on like something like, oh, we don't like witches, but we like werewolves. Cause I'd always thought it was like, I thought it was like a minor thing where I was like, I understand the one that gets talked about a lot because, you know, this is an English speaking country. And so a lot of things, the first look is the US, and I understand a lot of the sort of traditional English humor. Yeah. The way that doesn't translate to an American audience. So that's kind of how minor I thought it was. I didn't realize it was whole just like, no, actually we don't like dragons here, but do you have, you know?
Yeah. I remember when I was first in scouting and I was doing like a book report on, I forget what book it was, but I was reading it and I was like, it's a really cute book, but like there are a lot of cats involved. So I don't really know how well this is going to do. And my boss goes, no. The Germans love cats right now. Send it to our German client. And it's just like really small idiosyncrasies that apply to different countries. And it's so fascinating. But that's just like the fun part of figuring out a readership, and finding good books that they'll love.
Yeah. And because you've been in that space, when you're reading a query or a submission, you're kind of thinking like, oh, this would do well in that place, and this actually could work in that place.
Yeah. So whenever I read a submission, I always think, do I love it? And can I sell it? Because it doesn't make sense if I take on a client and I can't sell their book, because ultimately that's what the client wants. They want to be published. So I have to think, do I love it? Can I sell it? And then beyond that, I start thinking, okay, what's the like best life that I can get for this book? Are there different markets that I really think this will work in beyond the UK and the US? Because that ultimately benefits the author the most. It broadens their readership. It can get them wonderful advances and change their lives. I mean, I've seen authors whose books have sold for very little in the UK go and do a massive deal in Germany and become a bestseller over there. And the money that they get can absolutely transform their lives. Like they can buy a house, they can send their kids to good schools. Like it's incredible to see how much foreign rights really can transform an author's career overnight.
Yeah. And from what I've heard, Germany is a massive market for books and just reading.
Yeah, so I think the biggest markets are that we sell for are the UK, the US, just because North America has such a huge readership by
Yeah,
population, and then
yeah,
beyond that, the people that kind of like have the highest population that then read on in in a large country are Germany. So Germany is really big, but then also France, Spain, Italy is really great. China, a book can do very well there as well.
hmm
So we're always looking for kind of those really big markets of what will work for there. But then, as you sell a book, every once in a while, you'll get kind of like one Scandinavian country to buy a book, and then like the rest of them all topple. So if you sell in the Netherlands, you know that you're going to get like Denmark, like Finland, Sweden.
Oh,
You'll get
okay.
like the sensibilities are kind of similar, and also kind of like in over in Eastern Europe, like if Romania buys it, then you know that all of a sudden there's going to be like a huge influx of like other countries around there that say, oh yeah, we really want it too.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. I always joke that it's kind of like Eurovision voting, where where everybody kind of has similar sensibilities in a region, and they all go for kind of like the same songs.
Hmm
It's very similar with books. If something does really well in Poland, then the countries around it will also love it. Honestly, I think somebody should write a PhD on like Eurovision, like song voting, but also kind of like book sales in certain regions too, and how they correlate.
Yeah, it's not something I thought about before, but yeah, I guess yeah. When you explain it, it sort of makes sense in
Mhm.
that yeah, sort of neighboring countries are more likely to have similar sensibilities
Yeah.
and what they're interested in. Dialing it back quickly, just going back to
Mhm.
when you were Juliet's assistant.
Mhm.
I just wanted to ask because obviously that's quite a common way that people become agents is that they work as an assistant for an agency or for a person, and then over time they start making their own list. Was it when you took that job, when you started the role, was it always understood that you were going to at some point start building your own list?
Yeah, and I mean, when people hire assistants for agency roles, they're part of the role is you're doing a lot of reading, you're doing a lot of comments on work for existing authors, you're helping read submissions, and you're learning why books sell and why they don't sell and how the market functions. So you're learning how to become an agent. And so I expressed as well that I loved books and I loved selling books. And I deep down like always wanted to become an agent. And so she was always open to that. But I kind of took a really good, fun sidetrack into foreign rights because that's kind of what was needed at the time. But my background in scouting meant that I was so interested in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, one of my post grad degrees is on the development of international copyright between the US and the UK before there was a copyright treaty. Like, that's how geeky I was about international rights. Um, and so, yeah, I started out as an assistant knowing that that's what I wanted to do, but with foreign rights involved. And that's how the position grew.
Okay, I mean, it seems like foreign rights, if you have the
Mhm.
like knowledge base for it, is just a great asset to have as a literary agent.
Yeah, it is, and it ultimately helps your author and your clients the most because, like I said, it gives the book the biggest, best life that it can possibly have.
And those two you mentioned earlier, when you're looking at a book, you kind of think about two main things, and that's
Mhm.
do I love it? Can I sell it? Does it have to tick both boxes for you to say yes to it?
Um, it really should. Um, and I will say that I will never sign a book that I think, oh, I can just sell it.
Okay.
Because ultimately that does a disservice to the client because you're this book's biggest cheerleader the entire time. And you also sign up a client to work with them like for their career. It's not just a
Yeah.
flash in a pan and then you're done. I sign somebody because I love their work. I want to watch them evolve and keep growing. So I always look for something that I that I love and that I can play with and tweak and change and help the author develop. But I do have to sell it. I have signed a book before and an author that I absolutely loved. And I was like, I have no clue how I'm going to sell this, but I'm going to figure it out. And I did, and I sold it, and it still remains one of my favorite books to this day. But it's one of those things where I have to love it overall.
Okay. But it sounds like at some point you were worried there that you had signed something that you weren't going to be able to sell.
Yeah. I was like, well, I loved it so much, and the author can write so well. And so I was thinking, she can write this well. I will sell something for her at some point in time. Mm-hmm. I just want to work with her and get to that point. So we worked on the book, we got it to a point, and then we did sell it. And, but yeah, I was like, I love this so much. I want to work with this person.
Yeah. And I mean, the hope is that if you love it that much, other people are going to like it that much too. You know, it's going to have that effect on more than just you.
Yeah. Taste is so subjective in this industry. And I find that when I read something that hits so hard, I just want somebody else to have that emotion as well, and to walk away from a book feeling like they want to talk about it. And so that's why when I read books and I get that feeling, I know that if that triggers that emotion in me, that I will do everything to find an editor that also does that too. And that's how I know kind of readers will eventually love it too.
Yeah. How many, I don't know if you remember this, but how many authors did you have signed when you moved out of the assistant position?
Oh God. I would have to look that up. I think it was, sorry, when I was an assistant,
as in like, so when you at the point when you stopped being an assistant, how many had you signed like during that period?
So I actually went from being an assistant to being the foreign rights executive, I believe was the title change. So I actually shifted from being the assistant to just basically doing a bunch of the foreign rights and building up the foreign rights. And then once that was in a really good solid state, I started signing clients while I was running foreign rights. And then, yeah. And then I think I was running foreign rights for probably about 2 or 3 years. And then had my first kid, and then came back from mat leave. And it made sense to kind of use that as the transition out, to just do agenting. And I think I probably had about 10 clients at that moment in time. And I sold a bunch of projects, and those 10 clients also included people that I was about to sell as well. So I was able to kind of come back from maternity leave and hit the ground running. Yes, I think it was about that number.
Okay, right. So it was still a small kind of number when you actually sort of moved into full-time being an agent.
Yeah, but the authors that had sold, I was really happy with their deals. They were really fantastic, and they were all people who are still writing, and I've been working with to kind of keep their wonderful careers going. And it was something where it looked like they were all going to keep progressing and having a great time. So the projection was that kind of my list would keep growing, and I would sign more people, and just, kind of keep going from there. Yeah.
So that was a while ago now. Roughly, I won't press you for the exact number. How many authors do you represent now?
Oh God. I would say a few more than that.
Yes.
One of the things that I'm very lucky about is that I'm able to kind of be very picky and choosy about who I get to take on. So like I said, I only try to take on books that I absolutely love and I know that I can sell and do the best job for. So I think I've signed only a couple more clients since then.
Okay.
But all of the books are either out on submission or going out on submission, and I'm really excited about all of them and can't wait. And I'm basically I'm recording with you, but then I'm also sneakily looking at my work phone, waiting for a deal, hopefully to come through for an author. So yeah, it's a few, but I really want to take on clients in a way where I can do the best job for them continuously. So I'd rather not kind of just amass a bunch of authors. I want to do the best job for everybody that I have already.
Yeah, keeping it bespoke.
Yeah. Because I always want the authors to feel like I'm in their back pocket and I'm the best person rooting for them and that we're a team. And I want to make sure that I can do that for everybody and not be kind of inundated with too many things.
Yeah. I mean, I've spoken to a couple of agents who
Yeah.
have a similar approach. It's about making it more like sustainable and making sure that every author gets the time and attention they need, because at a certain point, like, it's ebbs and flows working with an author as an agent, right? Sometimes you'll have a lot of contact with them. Other times you'll have no contact with them. And then if they are, if their career is on the way up, if they're like getting deals pretty like regularly, you're going to spend, they're going to need less and less of your attention at that time, because probably they'll be spending more time talking to editors.
Yeah, but I definitely understand that. But also at the same time, I'm always monitoring people who are on their second book contract too, to make sure that they're happy and that I'm always here for them to be able to just like pick up the phone and be like, I need help plotting a murder, or I'm thinking about this new recipe for a cookbook. What do you think of this? Because I want to make sure that they're happy and they feel like they're progressing and that I'm there every step of the way to help. So I love being involved in all of that as well.
Yeah, that's the part of being an agent that people don't tell you, is that like you're part therapist kind of as well.
Yeah, you're there as an agent to make sure that everything runs as smoothly as possible. And whether that's giving good news, bad news, everything in between, you have to do it in a way that each author is going to feel respected and heard and understood, and advocated for. So that does take a lot of thinking. But that's something that I love, because I love working with people. Yeah.
So we've kind of talked a bit around it, but let's talk about the list itself.
This podcast is sponsored by IQ Bar.
I've got good news and bad news. Here's the bad news. Most protein bars are packed with sugar and unpronounceable ingredients. The good news? There's a better option. I'm Will, and I created IQ Bar plant protein bars to empower doers like you with clean, delicious, low-sugar brain and body fuel. IQ bars are packed with 12 grams of protein, brain nutrients like magnesium and lion's mane, and zero weird stuff. And right now, you can get 20% off all IQ Bar products, plus free shipping. Try our delicious IQ Bar sampler pack with 7 plant protein bars, 4 hydration mixes, and 4 enhanced coffee sticks. Clean ingredients, amazing taste, and you'll love how you feel. Refuel smarter, hydrate harder, caffeinate larger with IQ Bar.
Go to eatiqbar.com and enter code BAR20 to get 20% off all IQ Bar products, plus free shipping. Again, go to eatiqbar.com and enter code BAR20.
Starting with what genres, styles, and authors do you represent and that you are looking for to add to your list?
I represent everything from fantasy to cookery to thrillers to speculative, and all the fun stuff in between. Okay. So on the fiction front, I always say that I'm looking for books that make my heart sing. And I know that's not a really good kind of thorough description, but I'm looking for books where the writing is absolutely beautiful, and it's in that beautiful place between kind of commercial and upmarket where you're drawn into the narrative. I love a tightly plotted book. I do love pace. And I want a journey that makes me feel like I'm in the character's brain and I'm along for the ride. And so you can see that in my author, Karis Green. She just published a book called Always on My Mind. And she writes where the two main characters have a chip implant where they can hear each other's thoughts constantly. So you're literally stuck in each other's minds. But so I'm looking for kind of that in thrillers where you're basically locked in a very intense situation. And then, I'm trying to think, what else do I represent? So I've got thrillers. I love anything speculative as well. I love unique settings. So, one of the very first books that I signed and sold is called The Moon Represents My Heart by author Pim Wang Dachawat. And that premise is it's an intergenerational story of a family of British Chinese time travelers. And it has that really fun speculative element of the time travel. But you also have a beautiful story about a family dynamics and relationships. So that, for me, combines the beautiful, fascinating, speculative elements, but it also is a story that cuts right to the heart of everyday human emotions.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So speculative bits, I love them. On the fantasy side, I always say that I'm less kind of like swords and dragons and more kind of like fairies, werewolves, and vampires, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So more romantasy than epic fantasy.
Yeah. I will dabble in epic fantasy so long as there's a really good kind of human story or a relationship story involved. But ultimately, I love something that's really grounded. And I'm currently on the hunt for more kind of Celtic mythology. I would absolutely die for something spooky set in Scotland with like demonic selkies or mermaids or like a horror based like unicorn story, like something fun like that. And so that's what I'm kind of really looking for in that area at this moment in time. I'm like, what else do I have? And then on the nonfiction side, I really love cookery and food writing. So I represent a female chef named Sally Abbey. She has a great a great nonfiction memoir that's come out called A Woman's Place is in the Kitchen. And she's basically telling her story of what it's like to be a woman working in a very male-dominated environment. And it's very harrowing, but it's really funny at the same time. And I'm looking in that sense for kind of memoirs that flip a space that we think we know upside down and on its head. So I want kind of people to go in and rethink what we know and reassess and show change that either needs to happen or should be happening or that they're already kind of putting in place. And then I've also just sold a cookbook that was announced, and it's called Upside Down Cooking with by Dominic Franks, and it's just really easy, practical, wonderful recipes that's about cooking food literally upside down in one pan and making it look like a beautiful tart. And so as a mom with a kid who's just like running around half the time before dinner, really easy kind of cooking things that are delicious and nutritious are what I'm looking for. So if anybody wants to write a really good cookbook for me again, I'm really happy to take a look.
When it comes to nonfiction, because I've spoken to a few agents about nonfiction, do you find, well, first of all, what's the kind of split? Like how much of your list is fiction versus nonfiction?
I would say right now it's probably 40% nonfiction and 60% fiction. Yeah.
And the nonfiction authors, were those all through queries to you, or did you reach out to some of them?
I would say it's about 50-50.
Right.
And nonfiction is fun because if you dream up an idea for a book, you can then go and find the person to write it.
Yeah.
But then you also see what content creators are doing or what academics are putting out there, or just what anybody else is kind of putting out there into the world. And you say, okay, how could I make that a book? And then more importantly, does that person actually want to make it a book? So it's really fun approaching people with an idea and going from idea to finished copy.
Yes. They're not really the same, fiction and nonfiction, in terms of like that, the whole process of like querying, submitting, and also like the creation of it.
Yeah.
But just while we're on what you do represent, I went on the website, looked at the things that you have a no, I do not, this is not right for me.
Yeah.
So you don't represent sci-fi. And I imagine, based on the fact that you said you do like speculative, this is like hard sci-fi.
Yeah. So sci-fi, I find that I love watching sci-fi on TV or a movie rather than reading it a little bit. But that being said, there's always rules that are meant to be broken. So if anybody could write me like a new Battlestar Galactica in the vein of like Sarah J. Maas, I would happily take that on. But kind of really hardcore sci-fi, it's just not my cup of tea.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, I understand. You also had horror on there, which I assume you mean like very traditional horror, because you mentioned horror unicorns with your earlier one.
I think what we're seeing now actually is horror and kind of like horror elements are starting to seep into different genres. So listen, I'm a baby when it comes to like slasher movies or like jump scares, like something like that. And it's really bad in books for me as well. But I really kind of like the psychological horror of something kind of just behind your shoulder or in your head, or kind of like body horror. So, I mean, it might sound weird, but I think Our Wives Under the Sea is a slight body horror book. It's just a very beautiful literary book package around it, because you literally have somebody turning basically into water and a sea creature. And so I think kind of hardcore horror, I'm a baby, I just can't do it. But I love to see kind of like the spookier elements seeping into different genres.
Okay, yeah. And I mean, that to me seems very popular across the board, is the combining of genres. And, you know, obviously Richard Osman, the cozy crime genre has really taken off. Travis Baldry's cozy fantasy has become its own kind of thing now. And like there's horror romance is like becoming really popular. I've spoken to a few people that have been talking about that. It's just, which is cool. Like I love this kind of new phase we're in, where it's see what different genres you can combine now, because everyone is so familiar with the tropes of a genre. You can quite freely kind of combine two of them and people will understand most of the things they need to know.
Yeah, and I feel like readers are way more open to the combining of genres now. And I think it's great because it means that there's a blending of readership. So, I mean, you have people with romantasy that would never have picked up a fantasy book before in their life, starting to dabble in it, and then kind of going more hardcore into the fantasy genre. But also kind of like cozy crime as well. You have people who sometimes wouldn't pick up a crime thriller with like a huge body count, but then they read Richard Osman and they're like, oh, this is so funny and so great. But there are big body counts in those books. And you have people more willing to explore. And I think that's the best thing about the mashup of genres that we're seeing.
Yeah, the romantasy thing is, I'm so aware, I've spoken to a lot of people and seen it, the pipeline of people going from romance into romantasy and then ending up at Brandon Sanderson is just mind-blowing.
There's like, I think there's been this thing on like Instagram or TikTok where like all of a sudden you see like all of like the boyfriends getting into like Sarah J. Maas, and they're like, I'm hardcore fantasy readers, and then they're just like debating like the merits of Tamlin versus like other characters and such like that. And I'm like, I'm really into this. Thank you guys. Thank you.
Yeah, it's nice that crossing these genres has really like you say, blended a lot of readerships together.
Oh yeah.
Before we head over to the desert island, a question I love to ask agents is, do you write yourself, and would you have any designs on publishing a book or books one day?
I think everybody in this industry like writes in their own way. That being said, like I remember writing as like a teenage girl, and I hope those never see the light of day. And like I love writing, just being fun and creative, but I also realized that I think I'm not that great at it. So I love helping other people write more than writing my own stuff. But I will always be there to support and applaud anybody who has written their own book.
Yes. I mean, it's a great achievement just to have written the book and finished the book is a great achievement. Okay. So it sounds like probably not, but the door is slightly open. You know, never say never.
Who knows? One day, let's see what happens, but probably not.
Yeah. Awesome. So we're at the point in the episode where I ship you off on a boat and say, Liza, if you were stranded on a desert island with a single book, which book do you hope that it would be? I'm going to kick it old school, and I'm going to go with like the gateway book for me to get into fantasy. And that was Tamora Pierce's beginning of the Lioness Rampant series. Okay. So I have always loved those books. And I think as a teenage girl, not a teenage girl, like a tween, as I was reading them, I found like a really great kind of kick-ass protagonist. And I felt kind of like I could go on adventures too, and it got me really excited about reading. So I would bring that book, and if you let me, I'd bring that whole series, but I understand if there's not enough room on the boat. Yeah, no, I love to hear, because I'm a very big fantasy reader, so it's always interesting to hear what the kind of inception for someone getting into fantasy was.
Yeah. I loved that. And from there, that was just like the hopping off point for me to go to the library, and like the poor librarian, I'd walk in and be like, what's like this? Give me books.
But that's what librarians are so great at, is like they'll be like, oh, you liked this, and then they'll sort of think, I wonder what the elements were that they liked of this, and then recommend something accordingly. Yeah,
and when you kind of have like an 11 or 12-year-old girl walking in, they're just like, okay, what can I give you to this to keep you going and enjoy all of this genre? Yeah.
Yes, exactly. A young person with so much potential to become an avid reader.
Oh yeah. But I just I loved the world, and I loved the imagination, and kind of seeing books that were outside of our own world really for the first time that I loved. I was like, okay, the sky is no longer the limit. Other universes are, so let's go find them. Yeah.
And is fantasy like a big part of what you tend to read outside of work?
Yeah, I read a lot of fantasy. I'm reading kind of around the genre a little bit more, especially as more fantastic romantasy is being published. And then the other thing that I've been reading a lot of that kind of helps switch my brain off from like agenting mode is more nonfiction, historical kind of books, because it's something that I mean, I don't really represent historical nonfiction. So it's something that I'm not sitting there going, oh, I would have edited this differently, or it's something completely that I'm just like, I don't have to think. I just get to read and learn something new. Yeah.
Okay, so it's sort of an escape.
Yeah. Very That's dry nice. Academic historical tomes. Yes.
Awesome. Next up, I'd love to get a bit into cover letters, queries, and sending manuscripts to agents. That will all be in the extended episode available on patreon.com/rightandwrong.
That's the part of the plot that I latch onto the most.
Okay. Mm-hmm. That's great. That's really good advice. And I imagine lots of people listening will take that under advisement when they're thinking about what they're writing, what they're submitting, and things like that. Thank you so much, Liza, for coming on the podcast. We're at the end of the episode now, but it's been so great chatting with you. It's been so interesting hearing all about your career and your kind of path to becoming an agent, and as well as everything that you're doing with your list and your authors. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. I had such a fun time talking to you, and I can't wait to see what the listeners send me for their books, hopefully.
And for anyone listening, if you want to keep up with what Liza is doing, you can follow her on Twitter at Liza DeBlock, on Instagram at Liza the Lit Agent. And if you're thinking about submitting to Liza or any of the team at Mushins Entertainment, you can head over to the website www.mushins-entertainment.com, and you'll find all the submission guidelines and how to do everything there. And now you know that they all sit down together and read through them together. So if you get slightly the wrong agent on your title, it's fine. They'll pass it to the right one. To support the podcast, like, follow, and subscribe. Join the Patreon for ad-free extended episodes and check out my other podcasts, The Chosen Ones and Other Tropes. Thanks again, Liza, and thanks to everyone listening. We will catch you on the next episode.